What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC Atlantic City. We got Erin Blanchfield going against Manon Fiorot.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out.
And we are back for another full card breakdown and prediction video. This week we are back out of the Apex. We were in the Apex for the last two cards. We are now going to Atlantic City for a very, very fun fight. And I cannot wait for this one. I think the fans in Atlantic City are in for a treat. I think the fans watching at home are in for a treat as well. Really liking this card from a fan perspective, from a betting perspective as well. Unlike last week where I didn't have a ton of bets, ended up with a small winning night. This week I'm going to be a lot more heavily invested in this card here. I love the main event. Erin Blanchfield, Manon Fiorot, two fighters that I'm very high on, two fighters that I feel like could potentially be champion in the near future. And then we have just a stacked card, a stacked main card especially. I feel like the matchmakers did a really good job in terms of making some really exciting fights. So looking forward to breaking it all down. Before we get into it, if you guys could please do me a couple favors, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It is always very much appreciated. If you guys want to do support me more, or if you guys want to check out some extra content, go to dfsbythenumbers.com. The most popular option is that $10 betting tier. With that, you get access to all the stats you see on the Friday and Saturday shows. First notice on all bets. Got my final betting article that contains the prelim main card and Hail Mary DGM parlays. Access to Discord, betting alerts, full card breakdown and best bet article where I break down the entire card, give my confidence rating, the pick, the round, the method, and the best bet. And then also something new I've been doing this year is the prize picks article and prize picks entry. And we've hit the last three prize picks entries. So started the year off kind of cold from a prize picks perspective, but these last 3 weeks have been incredible from a prize picks perspective. So looking to keep the ball rolling. And speaking of Prize Picks, this is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you guys want to check it out, use promo code DFSBTN and you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And a lot of you guys have been asking where's the Prize Picks video. It'll be back this week. I'm going to be looking to get it out on Wednesday or Thursday there. So yeah, with all that out of the way, I say we get right into it. We have a lot to talk about, 14 fights, and we're going to kick it off with the first fight of the card. We got Jamall Emmers going against Nate Landwehr. We got Jamall Emmers, 34 years old, 5'10", with a 74-inch reach, 20-7, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Nate Landwehr, he is 35 years old, 5'9", with a 70.5-inch reach, 17-5, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Like we always do, we see that Jamall Emmers opened up, believe it or not, minus 110. And Nate Landwehr opened up minus 110. So this fight opened up a pick'em, and currently Jamall Emmers is minus 195. So yeah, I like both guys. You know, Nate Landwehr is one of the most exciting fighters in the featherweight division. He's always going to bring a fight, always going to bring a dog fight. He's going to come forward. He's going to fight for your money. But Jamall Emmers, I think, is very good. I think he's a very good fighter. I think he's always been like underrated because he's good at everything. You know, this is a guy in Jamall Emmers who's very long, very lengthy for the division. He's going to have about a 4-inch reach advantage here. He's a guy that's good everywhere. The striking's very good. He's very quick on the feet. I like the leg kicks. I like the movement. I think he's going to have a lot of success on the feet in this matchup. He has, I believe, a wrestling background, offensive wrestling, solid, defensive wrestling's elite. Nobody's taken this guy down. I believe he's either a brown belt or even a black belt in jiu-jitsu at this point. Just a very well-rounded fighter in Jamall Emmers. I always thought he's really good, but I guess the one thing that I don't like about Emmers sometimes is that fight IQ. This is a guy that's just made some mistakes, in a couple of his fights. The Pat Sabatini fight where he drops Pat Sabatini with one of the very first punches he lands, and then goes to the ground and gets heel hooked in about a minute and 53 seconds. I'll never forget the Giga Chikadze fight where I was actually pretty high on Emmers in that match, believe it or not, and he could have won that fight, but he decided to not shoot a takedown until halfway through the second round. It's what's going on? And that fight was very close against a guy like Giga Chikadze. It was a split decision loss even. So I think Emmers is very, very talented, but that one thing would be that lapse in fight IQ. But yeah, I expect this fight to take place on the feet. And at that point, I think Emmers is just going to be the better striker. I think he's more defensively sound. Nate Landwehr is a guy that's going to come forward. He's going to eat shots with his face. He's super tough. He can do it. But I just feel like Emmers is going to get the better of the striking exchanges. I'm not sure he runs away with this fight. I'm not sure he knocks out Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr is extremely tough. He has been knocked down quite a bit. But I kind of think this fight does go 15 minutes, and I think it's semi-competitive, but I do think it's going to be Jamall Emmers, getting the better of the striking exchanges for the most part, landing more volume across 15, just doing the better work overall, and winning a competitive decision, I'd say. So, yeah, give me Jamall Emmers to kick it off with a decision win. Next, we got Melissa Gatto going against Victoria Dudakova. We got Gatto, 28 years old, 5'5", with a 69-inch reach, 8-2-2, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Victoria Dudakova, she is 25 years old, 5'5", with a 67-inch reach, 8-0, and obviously 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Melissa Gatto opened up, believe it or not, plus 185. She's now a minus 165 favorite. Dudakova opened up minus 225. She's now a plus 145 underdog. I agree with the line movement. I actually really like Gatto in this matchup. Dudakova is going to be coming up a weight class, making her flyweight debut in terms of her professional career. As an amateur, she did fight at flyweight, but as a pro, she has not yet. Both her Contender Series fight and both of her UFC fights have been at strawweight. So coming up a weight class here, which I think is very interesting. And I was going back and watching some fights of Dudakova, and I have some major concerns about some of her fights. Just the last fight against Jinyu Fry. It's like Jinyu Fry, I think it's like 39, something like that. Very small strawweight Jinyu Fry. Like, Jinyu Fry is a fighter that probably should be fighting at atomweight if there is, of course, an atomweight division in the UFC. And Jinyu Fry took down Dudakova in the second round and controlled her for that entire second round. I was like, what the heck are you doing, Victoria Dudakova? How are you letting this happen? It was just a bad look. And Jinyu Fry was not really able to get anything going on the map. But at the same time, Dudakova really had no answer off of her back. And again, that's an atomweight in Jinyu Fry. Like, what's going to happen if Melissa Gatto gets on top? And the answer to that is very bad things. Gatto's a very, very good grappler, black belt in BJJ. She's dangerous, whether she's on top or on bottom. And even her striking's very good. Her striking's come a long way, because you go watch the tape of Gatto outside the UFC, you see zero striking. None. You see no striking whatsoever. Basically, in a lot of her fights, she's getting taken down, and she's getting like a lot of arm bars from guard, and she's getting a lot of submissions. You don't see a ton of striking from Gatto. But she came into the UFC against Victoria Leonardo. I know it's Victoria Leonardo, but her striking looked incredible in that matchup. And even against Lipski in her last fight, who Lipski is somebody who's really putting it together. Lipski's a very good striker, very dangerous. She actually outlanded Ariana Lipski at distance in, I believe, every single round, which was very impressive to me. She lost that fight by split decision. I think you could have scored that for Gatto potentially, but yeah, the fact that the fight was that close was still impressive. Lipski, again, is a very good fighter. She lost to Tracy Cortez as well, who's another very good fighter. I think it's a step down here for Gatto. I truly believe that. I think Gatto has her covered everywhere. I think in the striking, I favor Gatto. I think she's more dangerous on the feet. And then in terms of the grappling, I really favor Gatto. I think whether she's on top or on bottom, she can potentially find a sub here. So I like Gatto to win this matchup. I'm going to say she wins it by second round submission. I think she gets on top here at some point, and when she does, I think it could be a wrap. So give me Melissa Gatto to win this fight and win it by second round submission. Next, we have a very fun rematch here. We got Ibo Aslan going against Anton Turkalj, the pleasure man. We got Aslan, 27 years old, 6'3", with a 77.5-inch reach, 12-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Anton Turkalj, he's 27 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach, 8-3 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Aslan opened up minus 180, currently minus 115. Turkalj opened up plus 155, currently minus 105. And I'm kind of surprised. They're giving Turkalj another opportunity here. Turkalj is 0-3 in the UFC, but who he's losing against, Jonathan Almeida took him down and subbed him in the first round. No shame in that. Vitor Petrino took him to a decision. No shame in that. And then Tyson Pedro knocked him out. Pedro has power. No shame in that. So all 3 of these losses, they're not bad losses, but again, Turkalj 0-3 in the UFC. He's looking for his very first win here. And I'm a big fan of Turkalj. I think this guy is hilarious. I'll never forget his interview. It was before the Vitor Petrino fight, where he was getting interviewed, and he basically said something along the lines of, "I'm going to pleasure the fans." And I was sitting there thinking, what does he mean by that? How's he going to pleasure the fans? And then he went out there and proceeded to not pleasure the fans in that fight. I thought that was a very greasy fight with Vitor Petrino. I was expecting a lot more out of that fight. Ended up being kind of a grapple fest, but I think he's hilarious. I like the whole pleasure man gimmick. I like it, but in terms of his fighting style, I don't know what to think of him. I mean, this guy has had just no success thus far in the UFC, and he's going against Aslan, who he actually beat before. These guys fought a couple years back, and in that fight, in the first round, Aslan was having a ton of success. He was able to stuff all the takedowns, keep it on the feet for the most part. He got held against the cage a little bit, but on the feet, he hurt Turkalj a couple times, and I think that's going to have to be the case here for Turkalj again. Turkalj was able to weather that early storm, drag it into the second round, and once he got on top of Aslan second round, Aslan had nothing left, and that's kind of how I feel about Aslan. I think he's a one-round type fighter. With that said, though, I think he's going to have a good opportunity to win this fight in the first round just because Anton Turkalj is one of the most hittable fighters in the UFC. On paper, his striking defense is 49%. I was actually expecting it to be a lot lower than that. That's how hittable Anton Turkalj is. Both guys have improved since they fought before, but what I like about Aslan is he's training at Extreme Couture. And I don't know what it is with these Extreme Couture guys, but they just have great takedown defense. A lot of guys coming out of that gym just have like elite takedown defense, impossible to take them down. And Aslan showed great takedown defense their first time. I expect him to show improved takedown defense this time. And once this fight's on the feet, he's going to have, like I said, a ton of opportunities. But I think it has to come in the first 5 minutes. If it doesn't come in the first 5 minutes, Turkalj probably gets him down in the second or third and finishes him there. So I see why this line's coming in. I think it's Aslan early. I think it's Turkalj late. I'm actually going to take Aslan to knock out the Pleasure Man in the very first round. And I think it'll be a very pleasurable fight for all the fans to watch. I think somebody's getting served here. But I would take Ibo Aslan to win this fight by first round knockout. Next, we got a fight that I'm not sure should be sanctioned here. I mean, this is Herbert Burns. Wasn't expecting to see in the UFC, but here we are. We got Julio Arce going against Herbert Burns. We got Arce. He's 34 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach, 18-6 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Herbert Burns, 36 years old, 5'7", with a 74-inch reach, 11-4. And 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So we're going to have our biggest favorite here on the card. Arce opened up minus 225. He's already minus 600. I'm assuming everybody's parlaying him. Herbert Burns opened up plus 190. He is currently a plus 425 underdog. And like I said, I was not expecting to see Herbert Burns in the UFC again after his last performance against Bill Algeo, where I didn't know what to say. I mean, I guess he got hurt in that fight. Had some success early in terms of, he got Bill Algeo in some deep submission attempts, but, once Algeo was able to fight out of those, Herbert had nothing left, and at the end of the first round, the fight really should have been stopped, but they actually let him go into the second round. He was done after that first round. Like, when the first round was over, Herbert Burns was just laying there and not even getting up, and at that point, like, you should probably stop the fight, but they let him go out there in the second, and then Bill Algeo TKOs him about a minute or so into the second round there. And same thing with Pineda. Herbert Burns looks really good. He looks really good against Pineda. But in the second round, Pineda gets on top, and then that's that. So I worry about Herbert Burns. I worry about the heart, the cardio, the durability. I worry about, if he battles any adversity, just seems like one of those guys that just looks for a way out. But he's extremely front-loaded, and he's good. Like, I was watching Herbert Burns' fights, and he's good early on. He has power on the feet. He landed that big knee against Nate Landwehr, and his jiu-jitsu is very good. I was watching one of his fights. I forget which one, but one of the commentators were talking about how Gilbert Burns actually said that Herbert was the better grappler. I'm like, wow, that's very interesting, and he is. He's a really good grappler. Submitted Evan Dunham, submitted Derek Minner in the first round. Multiple first-round finishes for Herbert Burns. It's just what happens if he's not able to get that first-round sub. He's going to crumble, and he's only getting older. We haven't seen this guy in, I think, almost 2 years. I think it's been about a year and 8 months. And now he's 36 years old. So, yeah, I feel like this is a terrible matchup for him, though. Like, if you're the matchmakers and you're trying to get Herbert Burns a win, which it doesn't look like they're trying to, you don't give him Julio Arce. Arce is a guy that has some of the best takedown defense, if not the best takedown defense in the featherweight division. Arce's takedown defense sits at 95%. 95%. So Herbert Burns is probably not taking him down. If he's not taking him down, he's probably screwed. So yeah, this should be Arce. Arce minus 600, probably for a reason. I think Herbert Burns is going to go all out in that first round for the grappling, and if he's not able to get Arce out of there, which I don't think he does, I think Arce is going to crumble him in the second round. So give me Julio Arce to win this fight by second round knockout. Moving on, we got Loughran going against Angel Pacheco. We got Loughran, he's 27 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach, 8-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Angel Pacheco, he's 32 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach, 7-2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Loughran opening up minus 300, currently minus 325. Angel Pacheco opening up plus 250, currently plus 275. So this is one of the fights I don't have a ton of interest in, to be honest. I think that Angel Pacheco, I think he's going to bring some very exciting fights to the UFC. Like, I think, every time this guy fights, it's going to be entertaining. He's one of those guys that just likes to break you with the volume, the pressure, the pace. He can put up a ton of significant strikes. He's the guy that was on Dana White's Contender Series against Danny Silva, where those guys combined for about 400 significant strikes. It was an all-out war. It's just, in this fight, I feel like Loughran just has more ways to win. I just feel like he's the better fighter. Loughran, he took on Taylor Lapilus in his debut, and that was a tough matchup. Taylor Lapilus is a very good striker, and one thing about Lapilus that I did not like for Loughran in that fight was Lapilus has elite takedown defense, elite get-up game, so Loughran was not really able to get that game going. He tried. He was able to hold Lapilus against the cage for a little bit, take him down twice. He was 2 for 11 on takedown attempts, but Lapilus very hard to take down. Again, very hard to hold down. I don't think that's going to be the case with Angel Pacheco. I've seen this guy taken down. I've seen him held against the cage. I've seen him held down. And I think that's going to be the game plan here for Loughran. Because on the feet, although I do like Loughran striking, it's just Angel Pacheco is going to bring a ton of volume. But I also think that Loughran could potentially hurt him because Angel Pacheco is super hittable, and I've seen him drop before. So, yeah, I just think Loughran has more ways to win this fight. Minus 325, it's a lot to pay, but I think Loughran just can win this fight really wherever it goes, but especially with, I think, the grappling here. I think the control time, it's going to add up. The takedowns, it's going to add up. And I expect Loughran to win this fight and win it by decision. Moving on, we have an interesting fight here. We got Dennis Buzukja going against Connor Matthews. We got Buzukja is 26 years old, 5'9", with a 70.5-inch reach, 11-4, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Connor Matthews, 31 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach, 7-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. I think this is one of the closer line fights currently. Buzukja opened up minus 180. He's currently minus 130. Connor Matthews opened up plus 155. He's currently plus 110. So when I was doing my research for this card, this was one of the first fights I looked into because I saw Dennis Buzukja was a favorite. And I'm like, Dennis Buzukja's a favorite against anybody in the UFC? I was shocked. And I was like, okay, give me Connor Matthews, give me any reason to bet on you here as a dog. And I don't know. Like, I was not impressed with Connor Matthews in the slightest. Both these guys have been on the Contender Series twice. And then Connor Matthews' first fight on the Contender Series was one of the worst beatdowns I've ever seen on the show. Like, Francis Marshall went out there and beat the brakes off of him for the full 15 minutes. Like, the fight was not even competitive. The only thing that Connor Matthews showed in that fight was toughness, which he is. He's very tough, but that was not a great look. Even his win against the Farias guy, like, he didn't look great in that fight either. He was able to win the fight, but I don't know. I was not really impressed with that matchup as well. And then you look at him outside the UFC. Yes, he's going out there and finishing guys in the first round, but look at who he's finishing. Guys like Jay Ellis. And even that finish, like, I went back and watched that Jay Ellis fight. It looked so, I don't want to say it was a fixed fight, but holy crap, it's like Jay Ellis tried to get submitted in that matchup. It was hilarious. But yeah, so I don't know. He looks great against Jay Ellis, but outside of that, he doesn't look that great. And then you got Dennis Buzukja, who I've watched so many of this guy's fights. This is a guy in Buzukja who we've seen in the UFC now twice. We've seen him on the Contender Series twice, and I'm still not sure what he's good at. I think he's okay everywhere. I think he's an okay striker. I think he's an okay wrestler. I think he's an okay grappler, but I just don't think he's good anywhere. This is such a rough matchup. What I'll say, though, I think this is going to be a dogfight. It is a Connor Matthews fight, so I do think it's going to be fun and entertaining. And as far as a pick, I guess I'm going to ever so slightly lean towards Connor Matthews. Like, this is with probably the littlest confidence possible. But in a dog fight, give me the guy that is a dog. Because Connor Matthews is a dog. Connor Matthews is at least going to go out there and do everything in his power to win. I don't think he's the most skilled fighter. I don't think either guy is. But I'll take Connor Matthews to grind out like a greasy decision. But this fight can go either way, in my opinion. But give me Connor Matthews to win this fight by decision. Moving on, we got Jacob Malkoun going against Andre Petroski. We got Jacob Malkoun, who is 28 years oold, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach, 7-3, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Andre Petroski's 32 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach, 10-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We have Malkoun opening up -200, currently -200. Andre Petroski opening up +170, currently +170. So, yeah, Andre Petroski got starched in his last matchup against Michel Pereira, but can't really look into that too much. Petroski was apparently in Thailand hanging out on vacation, took the fight on short notice for some reason, and got knocked out in a minute by Michel Pereira. But I don't know why he took that fight, to be honest, because he was on a really good run, undefeated in the UFC, looking good. But yeah, that Michel Pereira short notice fight was not probably the best idea for Andre Petroski there. But as far as Jacob Malkoun, he lost his last fight. He got knocked out. He got disqualified against Cody Brundage in a fight where he was on his way to winning. Like, we all know that he was looking incredible in that fight. Like, he was borderline about to like TKO Brundage, it looked like in the first round, and then he landed an elbow. It wasn't even an elbow. He landed a forearm to the back of the head, and Brundage said he could not continue. Jacob Malkoun gets a loss. So I don't really count that, to be honest. We all know he was going to win that fight. And then also his other loss was against Brendan Allen in a fight where I thought the dude won. Maybe it was a little bit biased because I had a Jacob Malkoun decision ticket at +900. But he went out there and took down Brendan Allen 7 times, was able to control him for about half the fight. Even the fact that it was even that close against a guy like Brendan Allen, who we'll talk about next week, like, that was super impressive to me. I think both these guys are really good fighters, but, you know, Jacob Malkoun, I just think this guy's different, to be honest. His wrestling is incredible. What he did to Nick Maximov, Brendan Allen, Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, AJ Dobson, this guy's averaging 7 takedowns per 15 minutes. That is unheard of. 5-6 fights in thus far. The only flaw in his record, in my opinion, is that Phil Haas loss, where he got starched in 18 seconds. But outside of that, Jacob Malkoun's looked great. He's looked great. And what I like about Jacob Malkoun is I think he's going to get the better of the wrestling exchanges here. And I think he has the better cardio by a mile. Andre Petroski, his cardio's a little bit iffy to me. He's a guy that looks very, very tired, like visibly exhausted, like in the late first round, second round. But he's one of those guys that, yes, he looks tired, but he's always able to push through it. And he actually has some late finishes. But then again, you look at who he's finishing late, and it's Yazong Hu. Yazong Hu, who's 0-3 in the UFC, 3-3 overall. I mean, I'm a big fan of the guy, but he's 0-3 in the UFC. He subbed him in the third round. Michael Gilmore, he TKO'd him in the third round. So he's getting tired, but he's able to push through against these lower level guys like a Yazong, like a Gilmore, even like a Turman, like a Mearshart even. But I just feel like Maximov's going to provide, or Malkoun is going to provide a lot more resistance than a Gilmore, a Yazong Hu, a Turman, a Mearshart as well. So I like Malkoun here. I was kind of surprised at the price tag, though, to be honest. I thought the Petroski might get a little bit more respect, but no, Malkoun's -200, which I think is a little bit interesting. But I'm going Malkoun here. I think he takes the fight down to the mat, rinse and repeat, and wins this fight over 15 minutes. So give me Jacob Malkoun to win this fight by decision. Next fight up, we got Godinez going against Virna Jandiroba. And by the way, look how beautiful Virna looks. Really like her haircut there. We got Godinez, 30 years old, 5'2" with a 61-inch reach, 12-3 and 4-1 in the last 5 fights. We got Virna Jandiroba, 35 years old, 5'3" with a 64-inch reach, 19-3 and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Lupi opened up -160, currently -180. Virna opened up +140, currently +155. And yeah, this is a solid matchup here. Lupi is a pretty decent-sized favorite here, and I think because this could look a lot like Lupi's last fight against Tabitha Ricci, I think both matchups are kind of similar here, because with Tabitha Ricci, obviously a BJJ black belt, Virna Jandiroba, a very good BJJ black belt. I think in terms of grappling, Virna is probably like the second or third best grappler in the strawweight division. Her grappling is nothing to mess around with. And in that Ricci fight, Ricci went, I believe, 0 for 4 on takedowns. Lupi was able to stuff the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and then, of course, do the better work over 15 against Tabitha Ricci. I think Tabitha Ricci is the better striker than Virna Jandiroba. I think most fighters in the division are better strikers than Virna Jandiroba. If Virna Jandiroba does not get this fight down to the mat, Lupi's going to make this look easy. I have two concerns, though. The first concern is, what happens if Virna does get this fight down to the mat? Because although Lupi is a very good grappler, I like her grappling, Virna is just another level above. Virna's grappling is very, very good, very dangerous, and if Virna's able to get on top of Lupi, like, she could have a ton of success, maybe even finish the fight, but, you know, Lupi should have the defensive wrestling to keep this standing. So that's a worry, though. If Virna gets her down, I think it gets interesting. The other worry is the fight IQ of Lupi, man. I mean, Lupi is a fighter who, you know, it all started with that Angela Hill fight. It's like, you just saw the blueprint on how to beat Angela Hill. Virna went out there and took her down in all 3 rounds and beat her 30-27. What does Lupi Godinez do against Angela Hill? The opposite of that. Just strikes with Angela Hill across 15 minutes, loses a decision, and then after that, she fights Cynthia Calvillo. Same thing, 0 takedowns. And I thought she lost that fight. You know, split decision against Cynthia Calvillo, that's inexcusable. I thought she lost. Against Emily DeCole, only 1 takedown. And then she finally wrestles against Elise Reed. Thank you, finally. And look what happened. She subbed her in the second round. So my concern is, should Lupi wrestle here? No, don't wrestle at all. My concern is she does for no reason. All right, like if she takes down Virna, there could be problems. Virna's no joke, whether she's on top or on bottom. So, yeah, as long as Lupi fights smart, which again, it's a tough ask. As long as she fights smart, I think she looks minus 180, stuffing the takedowns, keeping it on the feet, just being the much better striker. Like, I don't think the striking's close. So give me Lupi. I'll take her to win by decision. Minus 180. I don't know. I don't know if I can trust her, but I'll take her to win this fight by decision. Next we have, believe it or not, the main card opener. We got Bill Algeo going against Kyle Nelson. We got Algeo, he's 34 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach, 18-7 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Kyle Nelson, 32 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach, 15-5-1 and 2-2-1 in his last 5 fights. We got Bill Algeo opened up minus 250. He's currently minus 230. Kyle Nelson opened up plus 210. He's currently plus 195. So the reason I'm kind of surprised that this fight is on the main card is because Kyle Nelson's last 4 fights have been unwatchable, just unbearable, terrible, horrible fights. I'm not sure whoever put this on the main card has watched Kyle Nelson's last 4 fights. I mean, that Jai Herbert fight was awful. The Doo Ho Choi fight was awful. The Blake Builder fight was awful. The Fernando Padilla fight, that was a little bit better, but still awful. These last 4 fights, and that's, you know, no shade to Kyle Nelson. I think Kyle Nelson is fighting very smart nowadays, which is it the most exciting fighting style? No, but he's going out there and having success. This is a guy that has completely changed around his career in Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson used to be a kill or be killed fighter where he's going to go out there, either take your head off in the first round. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, he crumbles and breaks in the second round or third round and gets finished. Diego Ferreira knocked him out in the second round. Matt Sales submitted him in the third round. Billy Quarantillo knocked him out in the third round, broke him. And then he takes 2 years off, comes back against Jai Herbert. Again, that fight sucked. That fight was terrible. You know, Kyle Nelson didn't show up. Kyle Nelson landed only 28 strikes at distance across 15 minutes. It was a horrible fight, a terrible fight. He lost it. Against Doo Ho Choi, Kyle Nelson lands only 17 strikes at distance. He's able to take down Doo Ho Choi a couple times. Doo Ho Choi, I believe, lost a point. And that fight ends up being a draw. But another terrible fight, which is crazy. Like, how can a Doo Ho Choi fight be terrible? But Kyle Nelson made it terrible. And then against Blake Builder, Blake Builder is typically a guy that's fast-paced. Very, very aggressive fighter. That fight was awful. Blake Builder didn't show up. Both guys barely landed anything across 15 minutes. Kyle Nelson just seems to be hypnotizing his opponent, slowing the fight down at his speed, And that's phenomenal. Like that's very smart of him because he can't push a pace. Anytime he's forced to push a pace, he gets tired and he gets finished. So shout out to Kyle Nelson for being able to do that to all 4 of his opponents in his last 4 fights. But he's taken on Bill Algeo here, who I'd be shocked if Bill Algeo goes out there and plays Kyle Nelson's game. You know, Bill Algeo is a guy that is landing over 6 significant strikes per minute. He's a very fast-paced type fighter, like a Billy Quarantillo. He's going to go out there, he's going to push a pace, and if he does push a pace here, this is such a good fight for Bill Algeo. But he needs to push that pace. He needs to push that pace from the jump. He needs to make Kyle Nelson work. He needs to make Kyle Nelson throw strikes, and if he does, I think Kyle Nelson's going to get tired, and I think he's going to break. I think Bill Algeo is going to break Kyle Nelson for the first time in a while. We haven't seen it since Billy Q did it, but I think Algeo is going to push a pace that Kyle Nelson's not going to keep up with. And I'm hoping he does. I'm really hoping it does because I have been completely wrong about these last several Kyle Nelson fights, and it's because he's just hypnotizing his opponents. Like his opponents are typically, exciting fighter like Padilla, Builder, and Choi are all very exciting fighters. Kyle Nelson's slowing the fights down to a miserable pace, and I'm not sure he does that against Bill Algeo. So I'm going to take Algeo here. I'm hoping Algeo comes in here with a great game plan, and if he does, I think he finishes Kyle Nelson in that 3rd round. All right, next we got Nursulton, Ruziboev going against Sedriques Dumas. We got Ruziboev, he's 30 years old, 6'5", with a 76-inch reach, 33-8-2, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. SD Dumas, he's 28 years old, 6'2", with a 79-inch reach, 9-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Ruziboev opened up -150. He's currently -265. SD Dumas opened up +130. He is currently +225. And yeah, Ruziboev made his debut. It was a great debut against Bruno Ferreira. Went out there and knocked him out in the 1st round. And Bruno Ferreira is a very good fighter. Bruno Ferreira is the guy that just knocked out poor Phil Haas. Bruno Ferreira is the guy that knocked out Gregory Rodriguez in the 1st round. So yeah, that was a great win for Ruziboev. And this is a guy that I think this guy can be seriously really good. He's training with those Renzo Gracie Philly guys. Just really good training partners to have. This is a guy that's freaking 6'5" at middleweight, which makes no sense, but yeah, 6'5" at middleweight, and he's gonna have a 3-inch height advantage here. So not only is this guy a giant, this is a guy that is dangerous wherever the fight goes. He clearly has power. He showed that off in his last fight, but what you'll see in a lot of his fights is just an incredible submission game. You look through his record, and it's Kimura after Kimura after Kimura. Like, this guy has to have like 10 Kimura wins on his record. Probably has 5 to 6 to 7 rear naked chokes as well. He's no joke on the mat. So not only does he have the power on the feet, but he has that BJJ as well. And working with those Renzo Gracie Philly guys is only going to help improve that game, the wrestling as well. So yeah, Ruziboev, I think this guy can be serious. As far as SD Dumas, I had some high hopes for Dumas, actually, coming into the UFC. Because you go watch Dumas outside the UFC, even on Contender Series, I think he showed a lot of good things. But inside the UFC, I just don't know what it is. I don't think he's been able to really put a good performance together. He's 2-1 in the UFC, but in his debut, he got submitted by Josh Fremd in the 2nd round. That's not a good look. And in that fight, he got hurt multiple times. He got hurt bad, like twice in the 1st round, got hurt in the 2nd round. Josh Fremd takes him down, insta-subs him. It looked like Dumas quit in that fight. And then he takes on Cody Brundage in what was the worst fight I've ever seen in my life, where Cody Brundage did not show up. Cody Brundage landed only 3 strikes at distance, as did Dumas. It was a terrible fight. Dumas was able to control him for 11 minutes. I was not impressed with that fight. Like, Dumas had Brundage's back for like an entire round and just like sat there. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then he goes out there against Abu Azaitar in a fight that was very close as well, a fight that was very uneventful. He was able to control Azaitar in the 1st round, and then round 2 was in favor of Azaitar, and then round 3 was a toss-up round. Like, he could have lost that fight. So I've not been impressed with any performance from SD Dumas yet, and this is going to be his toughest matchup, I think, by a mile. I mean, I think it's a really rough matchup for Dumas here. I really do. Because on the feet, I think he's kind of screwed. Like, if you're getting hurt multiple times by Josh Fremd, like, what's going to happen with Ruziboev? If you're getting submitted by Josh Fremd, like, what is Ruziboev going to do? Like, if this fight hits the mat, it's going to get ugly, I think. So I think wherever this fight goes, Ruziboev is just going to be a level above, super dangerous as well. And I think Ruziboev, whether Dumas gets his fight down to the mat or whether he gets his fight down to the mat, I think this fight is going to hit the mat at some point. And when it does, I think Ruziboev's getting a sub here. So give me Nursulton, Ruziboev to win this fight. I think he wins it by first round submission. Next, we have what is my favorite fight on the card. We got Chidi and Njokuani going against Rhys McKee. We got Chidi and Njokuani, 35 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach, 22-10 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Rhys McKee is 28 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach, 13-5-1 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We have Chidi and Njokuani opened up as a -175 favorite. He's currently -190. Rhys McKee opened up +150. He's currently a +165 underdog, and this fight is freaking awesome. So I do my stats and my preparation for like the slideshow and all that like a week and a half to 2 weeks prior, right? And I'm putting in the slideshow here, and I put it as middleweight because Chidi and Njokuani is a middleweight. This is a big middleweight. He's 6'3", and I'm like, oh yeah, this fight's at middleweight. Wrong. This fight is at welterweight. It's at 170 pounds. And whenever I heard that, I'm like, there's no way. And then I go check Chidi's Instagram, confirmed it. Rhys's Instagram, confirmed it. This fight is at 170 pounds. How the heck is Chidi and Njokuani going to make 170 pounds? This is a guy that's missed weight at middleweight before. With that said, he has fought at welterweight before, but it was a long time ago. I think it's been since like 2016. Since he's made 170 pounds. Like, this is now a 35-year-old Chidi and Njokuani who's huge at middleweight. So I got to see the weigh-ins for this. But even if Chidi goes out there and makes weight, like, how's that going to affect his performance? This guy has to cut a ton of weight. Like, that jump from middleweight to welterweight is a big, big jump there. So we'll see. But I do want to see Chidi on the scales. And this is a very interesting fight because we have a kind of a clash of styles in a sense, right? Like, Rhys McKee is a guy that he's super tough, but he is a walking punching bag. Rhys McKee is extremely hittable. He will eat punches with his face, and he'll eat a lot of them. Like, he will eat so many punches to the face, and a lot of times he's tough enough, right, to continue on and kind of break his opponents down the stretch. You'll notice a ton of second and third round finishes on Rhys McKee's record, but he is taking a beating in a lot of his fights. He's taking damage in a lot of his fights. He's very, very hittable. Kind of like a Homer Simpson approach for McKee in a lot of his fights, right? And then as far as Chidi and Njokuani, I think he's extremely front-loaded, especially at this point of his career, especially cutting down to welterweight. I think he's extremely front-loaded because we've seen Chidi broken a lot of times. So it's kind of weird. Like, we see McKee breaking guys, and we see Chidi getting broken a lot. Chidi's been finished 8 times. 8 times in his career. That Mikhail Olazechuk fight was a terrible look for Chidi. Like, Mikhail Olazechuk got on top, and it looked like Chidi was looking for a way out. The Gregory Rodriguez, same thing. Rodriguez gets on top of him in the second round. Chidi's looking for a way out. I question the heart of Chidi and Njokuani. I question, like, if he's able to battle any adversity. Whereas Rhys McKee, he can. The problem I have for Rhys McKee is he is going to have to weather like one of the biggest storms imaginable here. Like, a fresh early on Chidi is a terrifying thing, especially at welterweight. Like, Rhys McKee is going to get hit in the face, kicked in the face, and he's going to get hit in the face very hard. He's going to get kneed in the face, and you can be tough, right? But you can only be so tough. Chidi and Njokuani is going to, I think, beat the living crap out of Rhys McKee. Is Rhys McKee able to survive? That's the tricky part, man. Like, if Rhys McKee is able to survive those first 5 minutes, I like him to maybe take over down the stretch, but I have a feeling he won't be able to survive those first 5 minutes. He's going to have to just walk through an absolute storm, absolute fire, and I kind of feel like Chidi's just going to catch him here. I mean, you can't be this. I mean, Rhys McKee's a 44% striking defense. Anything that Chidi's going to throw is going to land. So I kind of see Chidi knocking him out in the first round. I think this is a great live bet spot. If Rhys McKee is able to somehow survive these first 5 minutes, live bet him, because he's going to win the fight if that's the case. But I kind of have a feeling Chidi's going to spark him early. So give me Chidi. I mean, yeah, Chidi sparked Marc-Andre Barrio early. He sparked him in 16 seconds. Like, what is he going to do to Rhys McKee here? So, yeah, I think Chidi sparks him. But this fight's awesome. Like, this fight is my favorite fight on the card. Give me Chidi and Njokuani, first round knockout. Let's see the weigh-ins, but I'm going to pick him to win this fight by first round knockout as of now. Moving on, we have a weird fight, but an awesome fight. We got Bruno Silva going against Chris Weidman. We got Bruno Silva, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, 23-10, and 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Chris Weidman, 39 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach, 15-7, and 1-4 in his last 5 fights. We got Bruno Silva opening up minus 200, currently minus 300. Chris Weidman opening up plus 170, currently plus 250. This is such a weird matchup. Like, first look, I'm like, I might max bet Bruno Silva. Like, Chris Weidman, he's now 39 years old at this point. He's taken so much damage. He's been knocked out 6-7 times. I don't think his chin's the best. I mean, this is a guy that just took an absolute beating from Brad Tavares in his last fight. If Brad Tavares showed any urgency possible, Brad Tavares would have finished him as well. Wasn't a great look. Like, the last good performance from Chris Weidman was back in 2017. That's a long time ago. That is like 7 years ago. That was the last good performance. It was against Kelvin Gastelum in that 5-round main event. That was the last good performance, because since then, knockout loss to Jacare, knockout loss to Dominic Reyes. Terrible fight against Omari Akhmedov, was able to win though. That nasty injury against Uriah Hall. That terrible fight against Brad Tavares. The last good performance from Weidman was in 2017. It is 2024. So on one hand, it's like Chris Weidman has a clear path to victory here. Bruno Silva, although a black belt, has to be the worst black belt in UFC history. This guy's been subbed like 8 times. His ground game is not great. Like, if Chris Weidman gets on top here, he could potentially sub Bruno Silva, right? It's just, how can you trust a 39-year-old Chris Weidman who can, get knocked out at any point in this fight? Bruno Silva has a ton of power, right? Like, Bruno Silva does one thing good. He hits hard. Chris Weidman struggles with one thing, the chin. But on the flip side, Bruno Silva struggles with that ground game, and Chris Weidman maybe has, ground game upside here. It's a weird fight. I cannot pick Chris Weidman though, but I think he's like weirdly live. I do, but I also feel like Bruno Silva is probably going to knock him out here, and I think Chris Weidman probably should retire if that's the case. I was actually shocked to see they put this matchup together, because first look, I'm like, this fight shouldn't be sanctioned. But after digging into it a little bit more, I'd be lying if I said Weidman does not have a path here. But I'm going to take Bruno Silva to knock him out, give Chris Weidman like his 7th knockout loss in his career. Give me Bruno Silva to win this fight give me first-round knockout. Moving on, we got the co-main event, an absolute banger here. We got Vicente Luque going against Joaquin Buckley. We got Luque, 32 years old, 5'11", with a 76-inch reach, 22-9-1, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Buckley, 29 years old, 5'10", with a 76-inch reach, 17-6, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Very fun fight here. Very fun co-main event. Luque opened up minus 160, currently minus 145. Buckley opened up plus 140, currently plus 125. And by the looks of it already, it looks like Buckley is going to be the dog of the week for many people. And I'll say this right now. If this was Vicente Luque in his prime, he wrecks Buckley in this matchup. He destroys him. He either knocks him out or he hurts him and then club and subs him. If this is Vicente Luque in his prime, I think he destroys Buckley. The problem is, I don't think we're getting prime Vicente Luque. I think that Luque is gone, which sucks. See, I'm a big fan of Luque. How can you not be? This is a guy in Luque who's never been in a boring fight. Maybe one boring fight. Maybe 2. Bilal Muhammad was not the most exciting fight, and then his last fight against RDA was not the most exciting fight. But I have serious concerns about Luque. Like, this is a guy who, there's some guys in the UFC where it's like, you can't imagine what it looks like for them to get knocked out. Max Holloway, the day Max Holloway gets knocked out, it's going to be crazy. Like, this guy is it's hard to imagine Max Holloway getting knocked out. Marlon Vera comes to mind. Pedro Munoz comes to mind. Just tough, durable guys. That was Vicente Luque for me. I'm like, nobody's ever knocking out Vicente Luque unless, they all of a sudden let you bring like a baseball bat into the cage. And even then, I don't think a baseball bat can knock him out. And then he fights Jeff Neal. And Jeff Neal beats the brakes off of Vicente Luque. It was a terrible beatdown. And then he knocks him out in the 3rd round. drops him multiple times throughout the fight, but knocks him down bad in the third round, face first into the canvas. Just hard to watch, to be honest. And then he suffered that whole, the brain bleed, right? That was the big narrative going into the RDA fight. You know, Vicente Luque had that brain bleed, and I was like, dude, probably shouldn't be fighting anymore. I mean, that's terrible, but apparently he was all recovered and all good. And then he goes out there and beats RDA, who's a small welterweight, and he does something that we haven't seen from Luque ever, and that's wrestle. Like, the last time we saw Luque even land a takedown was back against Leon Edwards back in 2017. But now all of a sudden Luque is wrestling? I don't know. Luque is a guy that's always getting into wars. You know, why is he going out there and wrestling? And then after the fight, he said something that really kind of concerned me. Vicente Luque said something along the lines of he was scared to get hit. Like, what? Like, just hearing that from a guy like Vicente Luque, like a guy that I thought loved to get hit, right? You know, he was scared to get hit against RDA. Like, that's terrifying, man. So what's the game plan here going to be for Luque? Is he going to try to wrestle like he did against RDA? If he does, it's not working here. Is he going to go to war? If he does, you know, what's he going to look like? I got to go Buckley here. I got to go Buckley. Prime Luque, I think, serves Buckley, but this is not Prime Luque anymore. Give me Buckley to win this fight and maybe even knock out Luque. Maybe even knock him out. So I'm going Buckley. I'm taking Buckley to win this fight by second round knockout, but this fight is phenomenal. But then again, I am kind of worried about Vicente Luque, to be honest. This guy's taken just a crazy amount of damage in the majority of his fights, and I think the damage is sadly starting to catch up on him, which is not good. But yeah, I'm going to take Buckley to win this fight by knockout. All right, moving on, we have the main event. I did do a main event breakdown on this fight if you guys want to check it out, went a little bit more into detail, but yeah, Erin Blanchfield, Manon Fiorot, very fun main event here. I love this main event. I'm a big fan of both fighters. Erin Blanchfield, she's 24 years old, 5'4" with a 68-inch reach, 12-1, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Manon Fiorot, she's 34 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach, 11-1, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Take a look at the odds here. Open up a pick'em. Blanchfield now minus 150, Fiorot plus 130, and I'm really struggling with this fight. These are two fighters who I think could easily be champion in the near future. Like, if Manon Fiorot beats Erin Blanchfield, and then she goes to take on either, whether it be Valentina or Grasso, I think Manon Fiorot potentially beats, at this point, like Grasso and Valentina. I truly believe that. Erin Blanchfield. If Erin Blanchfield beats Manon Fiorot, I think she could absolutely beat Valentina or Alexa Grasso. I truly believe that both these fighters have championship potential. That's why this fight's so good. What I'll say, though, is Manon Fiorot probably needs to win this fight. Like, if Manon Fiorot does not win this fight, she's 34 years old. She's not getting any younger, whereas Erin Blanchfield, if she loses this fight, it's not the end of the world. She's only 24 years old. And it's hard to imagine Erin Blanchfield not being a champion at some point. It's very hard to imagine. But this fight's tricky to me. It's tricky to me because I think it's going to be a close fight. I think this fight is probably going the distance. I think it's going all 25. If it doesn't, I think maybe it's a Blanchfield getting this fight down to the mat later on and getting a sub. But I think this goes to full 25. And I think it's going to be competitive. Like, early on, I kind of struggle to see Blanchfield taking down Fiorot. Blanchfield's grappling is top-notch, but the wrestling is not amazing. You know, she's completing takedowns at about a 36% accuracy, went 0 for 14 on takedowns against Tyler Santos, went 0 for 4 on takedowns against JJ Aldrich. Manon Fiorot's takedown defense is elite. She's very physically strong. She's going to be hard to take down. I'm not sure Blanchfield takes down Fiorot in those early rounds. But what I do like about Blanchfield, though, is she's a dog. She's going to come forward the entire time. She's going to pressure the entire time, and that pressure gets to opponents. It got to Tyler Santos, and she was able to grind out that win, gut through it, and win a decision. I could maybe see something like that happening here, but in the early going, I do favor Fiorot. I think Fiorot is going to get the much better of the striking exchanges. I think she's going to be able to keep this fight upright, but my worry is, as this fight goes on, I think Blanchfield, the pressure, the pace, the relentlessness could maybe get to Fiorot, and we could see Fiorot start to slow down. So I think it's a close fight. I think we might even get like a split decision here where Fiorot does the better work early, Blanchfield does the better work late. I think the opener was more correct here. I think a pick makes a ton of sense. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. Everybody's on Blanchfield this week. This line's getting crushed as we speak. I just refreshed, and Blanchfield's actually, I think, like minus 160 now. But yeah, this is a close fight in my opinion. I'm going to take the dog here in Fiorot. I'll take her to win a very, very tight decision here. Just doing the better work on the feet, stuffing the takedowns. But I do think it's going to get very interesting later on in this fight. Neither fighter's been 5 rounds, at least in the UFC. Neither fighter's been 5 rounds. First fight scheduled for 5 rounds between the two, so that's going to be interesting. But I'm going to take Manon Fiorot to win this fight and win it by decision. There you guys have it. Oh, by the way, Erin Blanchfield was actually scheduled for 5 rounds against Jessica Andrade, but of course it ended in the second there. But anyway, yeah, sticking with Fiorot by decision. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. A little bit of a longer breakdown. We had a ton of fights to talk about, a ton of great fights to talk about. If you guys could please do me a favor on your way out, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. All my content will be posted there throughout the week, looking to attack this card decently heavily from a betting perspective. Be on the lookout for the articles, stats, all that good stuff on dfsbythenumbers.com. And then lastly, check out Prize Picks, promo code DFSBTN, and be on the lookout for the Prize Picks breakdown later in the week as well. Yeah, best of luck. UFC Atlantic City. We'll talk to you guys very soon, and see you later. Enjoy the card.